What is going on, Lucid fans? Welcome back to Financial Journey. There was a recent interview with Peter Rawlinson. I want to talk on that and some highlights that you need to know, especially more so they do talk on overall expansion, which is my favorite topic when it comes down to Lucid. Outside of that though, I want to talk on possibly what might be coming from our Q3 earnings as far as reservation numbers. So I'm going to go over all that fun stuff and some additional fun facts. Before I get into any of that though, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up and subscribe is always greatly appreciated. Plus, it helps push out a lot of Lucid content out into the broader YouTube world. So it's always greatly appreciated in doing so. With that though, let's get right to it. So there was an interview with Peter Rawlinson. I would play this for you, but unfortunately it is not in English, so I don't necessarily feel a lot of us would understand. Luckily enough, Sultan on actual Twitter did give us the Cole's notes of everything that you need to know. So as you can see, interview with Peter Rawlinson. In this interview, they do talk on inflation, which I'm sure a lot of companies in issuing their Q3 earnings are all going to be referring to inflation one way or another. But in Peter's case, he does say that inflation is affecting everyone, but Lucid is in a good position due to its battery technology. And I definitely do agree with that. Peter has said many times that having everything done in-house reduces a lot of costs, and especially more so in eliminating any supply chain issues. Of course, they do have to order some parts per se, but having everything done in-house does eliminate a lot of that risk, especially third-party risk. And also, he does announce that they produced 2,028 cars in Q2 2022 and that he's very optimistic about the future. As far as moving on, like I said, when it comes down to Europe, I'm a very big fan of Europe. One of the big things I really started off with Lucid, especially starting doing a lot of videos, is capitalizing and saying you need to think long-term. Look at exactly where they're trying to target, which in reality was Europe. Also, China potentially was still floating around at the time, and Saudi Arabia. Those are the very big untapped markets, even more so Europe. So he definitely does say that exact same thing. So we will be delivering to Europe before the end of 2022. Europe is the second largest market in North America. So in reality, I believe it is actually the first as far as EV demand out there. Maybe China, possibly. I know it does go back and forth between China and Europe, but definitely regardless of all that, I know Lucid is going to be targeting the right markets. Oddly enough, in this actual statement right here, and also even 3 of 3, he doesn't actually refer to delivering to Saudi Arabia. So that might be something just to watch, because based on the Q2 earnings, he does say that we also expect to ship very first Lucid Air to Europe and Saudi Arabia by the end of the year. So potentially, maybe just omitted it. I'm not sure. Maybe it just slipped his mind. I'm not really sure. But he does talk also right here on the Saudi factory and how it's going to be beneficial on the Red Sea as far as reducing supply chain costs and transportation and things like that. It will start next year with assembly capacity of 5,000. So definitely something to look forward to next year. So let me know your thoughts on that. Like I said, when it comes down to our Q3 earnings, which is going to be on November the 8th, make sure you guys subscribe because I'm going to be live streaming that. But there's a lot of anticipation. So in case you guys do not know, when it comes down to upcoming earnings, there's several different things people pay attention to. Earnings per share, revenue, future guidance. In Lucid's case, we're also caring about reservation numbers and more specifically, production numbers. So as far as production numbers, they have already been announced tentatively. I'm going to be doing a very in-depth video on every aspect on Lucid that you need to know going into the Q3 earnings. So stay tuned for that. But when it comes to that though, I want to talk more so overall on their reservation numbers. As it stands right now, we're sitting at around 37,000. I anticipate, especially more so with all the events that happened in Q3 throughout Europe, as far as showcasing, that usually does bring in a little bit more reservations. So hopefully out of Europe, the studio out in Germany, and also a lot of those conferences and kind of showcasings that Lucid has done, one of which I believe was in Switzerland, the second of which was done in Germany, will hopefully bring a nice amount of reservations coming from Europe. And in addition to that though, hopefully some from Saudi Arabia, but keep in mind, I believe that their studio did open on October the 25th, which is going to be incorporated in the Q4 numbers. So might not necessarily benefit Q3, but still, let me know your thoughts on that. Overall, keep in mind, I'm not a financial advisor. Do your own due diligence at the end of the day. But North America, as they even say, is one of the biggest markets out there. And surprisingly enough, even though the stats behind it didn't validate or kind of prove that North America or the States was going to be any good for EVs, definitely the higher prices in gas incentivized a lot of people to jump over to EVs, which was very surprising to us as investors. So definitely started off in Q1, then even more so in Q2. In Q1, I was very impressed because Peter did say in the actual earnings that majority of the reservations came from the States. Didn't come from Canada, it came from the States. So definitely that was very, very surprising and very beneficial. And I think that was a starting point that proved a lot of the studios out there are doing exactly what they're intended. So I believe that the price point, some people were floating around that it costs $1 million for each studio to be actually produced and everything behind it. So definitely you need to get a little bit more of a return on those investments. So by bringing up demand and reservation numbers, bringing those in, definitely paying off for a lot of those studios. So I think right now we are in a very good position to possibly, give or take, be around 45, if not more, for reservations. And obviously I'm meaning 45,000, because when it comes to that, the one very good telltale sign is looking at how much traffic goes actually to Lucid. And when it comes to that though, just on a monthly basis, just last month alone, so in September, there was 1.2 million visits, although it was down roughly about 7%, give or take. Having 1.2 million people view Lucid just in that time frame, which I'm sure a lot of those visits do result in people reserving a vehicle. So especially more so that you can actually reserve a vehicle, still have that fully refundable, because when it comes to that though, when you look on Lucid's website, it is very impressive. So for someone to kind of read through it and just see how much you actually do need to submit a reservation and to lock one in, definitely might be very incentivizing for people to jump over. Like I said, in Q3, there's been a hell of a lot of PR, both coming from North America and Europe, and even more so even Saudi Arabia. So definitely Q3 was very active for hopefully getting Lucid's name out there, which I'm sure will increase our reservation numbers. Obviously it does go back and forth. So when it comes to that though, this is where I'm putting it, around 45,000, if not possibly more given the circumstances. And like I said, just September alone, it was 1.2 million. So which was down roughly about, like I said, 7%. So clearly I think it is around the 1.4 million for August. So clearly a ton of people are looking at Lucid, whether they are just investors or possibly just very much interested in the underlying vehicle, because also Sapphire did come out as well. I'm sure that did bring a lot of attention to Lucid. So given all the circumstances, I am absolutely very confident in their Q3 earnings. So let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. I'm just going to give you some other updates on where we are at within the broader market. And as usual, I like to talk on what big money is doing. So this is all the dark pool transactions as of right now for the 27th. So today was a fairly positive day, as you can see. So a fairly good amount of institutions getting in on the dark pool, and the same goes for on the secondary market. And that's been a little bit more of a growing trend as well. So definitely, despite the fear more so about GDP numbers, PCE, and all the other earnings fears out there, a lot of big money is really looking at Lucid and very focused on that. So let me know your thoughts on that. In addition to that, I'm going to do a little bit more technical analysis, but I just want to talk on what shorts are doing, because when it comes down to today specifically, it was a little bit more abnormal. 87 is our short score, so the higher the number, the higher the likelihood of a squeeze happening. Utilization is 100%. That means 100% of the available shares to shorts are currently out. On a side note, if you guys have any questions about any aspect here, definitely let me know in the comments below. $1.84 billion worth of shorts is out though, so that's very significant. And today was a very interesting day. So obviously the broader market very fearful and everything like that. But overall, on a net status, 593,000 shares is what was increased. So 22.49 is the short interest. And as you can see on this little chart right here, I'm going to stop moving so you can kind of see that. technically there was 11.99 million shares that were overall at one stage or another being borrowed against Lucid. So what I mean by that is shorts were technically getting in at a very slow pace, kind of stagnant, and then they closed out their positions. When I was starting to prepare for this video, shorts in reality, and I think I actually posted it on Twitter as well, but in reality they were increasing it around 3.2 million at that stage before they closed out a lot of their positions. So again, shorts were really trying to bring Lucid down, but like I even said in the last couple update videos, Lucid, despite all the fear, bad earnings and everything like that, they're holding very strong, and you can tell that based on the actual technicals as well. So I'm trying a new different format here, so hopefully you guys don't get too confused with all the random lines going on here. This white line right here is basically what you need to watch for. That is our pivot point, and that is around the $15 range. If we can get over that $15 range, this is where a lot of people are saying that we can easily get to around here, which is the 1670 range. At the end of the day, we do have a lot of good support behind us. Over and above that though, we do have a lot of resistance. So we're going to be stuck more so in a little bit more of a stagnant range. So this is exactly what has been happening over the last couple of days, but more so I believe it is going to be on November the 2nd. So that's the next Fed meeting, when that might actually be the next optimistic stance on us breaking out. Historically, at least with the exception of the last one that came out, Feds typically give us a nice little bit more of a positive reassurance and the calming after they raise their rates. Right now, it is estimated to be around 75 basis points. Typically, even though it is a little bit more backwards and the States is a massive country, a huge economy, they typically do follow exactly what Canada does. And Canada, I believe, as of yesterday, only raised their rate 50 basis points, even though their forecast was going to be the 75, similar to what the States is. Again, that did give us a nice little bit more of a optimistic viewpoints, because typically I know Canada is a very small country in the grand scheme of things with a very small economy, but right beside each other as neighbors, definitely they can look for a lot of similarities. So the fact that they are kind of reducing it to avoid a recession, that might be a similar stance that happens in the States. If so, I do anticipate us getting to this around 1650 range. That's obviously my own 2 cents, and these videos are for entertainment purposes only, so make sure you guys do your own due diligence. But let me know your thoughts on Lucid in the comments below. Despite that though, like I say, when it comes down to talking about Q3 earnings, Q4, whatever it might be, you have to think long term, as I always like to stress to you guys and give you a little bit more insight. So let me know your thoughts overall on Lucid in the comments below. If you haven't already, don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe, is always greatly appreciated, and plus it is free to do so. But with all that though, let's all make a lot of money on Lucid.